the tax base, it's our Woodfield, basically, of Bartlett. We understand that. We also understand that the improvements to the water, bringing Lake Michigan water, is also a good benefit for us. That's going to protect our health. The intersection improvements at 59 and Stearns Road are another issue that we appreciate the village's participation, and thank you for that development. As I said, the Brewster Creek Business Park is a vital portion of our community, but it belongs at the Stearns and Munger intersection and beyond, to the west and to the north, not to the east up against our subdivision, Linfield Lane. The previous village board and plan commission who developed your comprehensive plan back in '78 had a vision, and their vision was correct. They understood land use transition. Land use transition between more intense uses. When you look at the proposed development, they showed football fields up there. What they didn't show was the size of their buildings, and it's pretty obvious that the scale of these buildings are 2 football fields in length, a football field deep, and 40 feet high. A 6-foot landscape berm, which they've just come up with, I think because they've seen our plans and our letters in opposition, to try to pacify us with this. This is not going to alleviate the scale and impact of this development. This development belongs on the west side of Munger, and we certainly applaud the village for developing that property. And if you can go back to the view of the site plan with the size of these buildings, in proportion to Tom Block's business to the north, his business is the second building. The second building in from Munger. You look at the scale of these 2 football fields in length, football field deep, 40 foot high, up against the existing business park. These are massive structures. I'm from Iowa, and my farmer cousin would tell me, John, they're trying to put 10 pounds of manure in a 5-pound bag. They have maxed out both of these lot parcels. He talked about wetlands. This is their detention facility. Again, certainly feel for the Cronin family and the length of time that they've had to try to market and peddle this or sell this property to a builder. They've certainly had a long history with this property. But again, I go back to the existing zoning, the SR5 on this third of the property and the OR business was envisioned as a transition from the Linfield and Weathersfield subdivision to this business park, was certainly to the west and to the north makes sense from this point, not from this point.
Okay, your time is up.
Please. Can I have a show of hands of how many would give me your 3 minutes so that you won't get up and, thank you.
Your time is up.
I've just petitioned the audience for
Your time is up.
3 minutes.
Would you please sit down?
Given the builder over an hour.
Your time is up. Can you please sit down?
Can you show the plan, Roberta? I'm speaking for her.
Your time is up. Can you please sit down? Roberta, can you call the next one, please?
Robert Miller. Robert Miller.
Robert Miller, 1171 Wakefield. I might have a different tack than my neighbors. I find it unusual that this is the only building on Stearns that would pull in and out of Stearns. There are no other businesses in our section that pull in and out of Stearns. Not sure why that's designed, but this would be the only one. In addition, there is potential of over 400 people leaving, because I believe there's over 400 parking spots, leaving at one time, 3 times a day, 3 potential shifts a day, pulling in and out of this parking lot. It's hard enough to get out onto Stearns as it is for my peers or my neighbors and myself. In addition, I enjoy hearing the fact that there are an average of 7 trucks a day, an hour, pulling out of the parking lot, which could mean 21 in 1 hour and 0 in 2 hours or 3 hours. So I love averages. It could also mean there's 50 trucks pulling out in 1 hour and none the rest of the day. So I think we have to take that into perspective. One of the other things that has always concerned me is when I used to run, I'm a marathoner, and I ran around the business park, and you'd run by Schiffer, and there's trucks up and down Schiffer. They're just sitting there waiting. Sometimes they're running, sometimes they're parking there. Where are the trucks going to queue that want to get into this subdivision? Are they going to queue on Stearns? They're going to be sitting waiting on Stearns? I don't know if that's a legal place to park or not, but it would be very hard to get around them when they're parked there, if that's a possibility. So I'm very concerned about where the trucks would queue. I would love to see, if this building has to be there, and we have to have all these parking spots, I would love to see everybody have to leave via Munger and not via Stearns. So I don't even know how you'd have to position that, but again, I'm very concerned about the amount of traffic that's coming in and out of Stearns and our ability to leave the area. Lastly, I don't think the snow answer was covered. Didn't think about it until it was brought up earlier, but where are you going to put all the snow in that area? I don't think you've answered that question. Lastly, I appreciated these gentlemen giving us the threat of what could go in that area and the fact that you could have all these people driving through our subdivision. Some people might call it a warning. I might call it a threat. My answer is, if we have other people, other areas that are going to be built there, other kind of construction being built there, and we don't want the threat of these cars driving through our subdivision, we'll be back. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Terry Witt.
Terry Witt, 471 Southwestern Avenue here in Bartlett. I'm a bicycle rider. I'm a cycling instructor with the League of American Bicyclists. And I would just like to mention the value of the bike path if the development comes in. That's a tough decision for them. But if you do build, because that's part of a larger path for people. Now you divide the population into 3 groups. There's 20%, they aren't going to ride a bicycle if you beg them. And then there's 20%, hey, we're going to just ride wherever we want to ride because we ride. And then there's 60%, if they feel that they have a safe place to ride, they'll ride. So I'm not sure how our audience is divided, but I ride between the community center and the state park about 20, 30 times a year on Stearns Road. So I accept any of the risk going along with the traffic that's moving at 45 or 50 miles an hour. But most people do not accept that risk. A lot of people that I ride with say, no, thank you. But what's the value of that path would be is that by being 10 feet wide, it makes it 2 ways. And it would go all the way, not just from Munger to 59, or Linfield, but all the way to Lake Street. All the way to Lake Street. Now, the way I ride right now is, as I'm riding back from the state park, I'm over on the right side of the road, on the shoulder, and when you get to Lenfield Lane, the shoulder ends. So I go up on the road, and I keep riding on Stearns Road until I get down to South Bartlett Road. I just want to let you know, the drivers are real jiggy at 59 because they're more concerned about getting through the traffic light. They're more concerned with cars coming in and out of the shopping centers there at 59. So I just want to say, if you do build it, please build the side path because it will make it safe for a lot of people who ordinarily wouldn't ride their bikes. And eventually, we might even be able to get a path all the way out to the state park so people can ride between the community center and the state park. I know a lot of people would like that.
Okay, thank you. Time is up. Thank you.
So, just briefly, we designed the DuPage Century Ride for the DuPage County's 100th anniversary. The idea was to do 100 miles and hit as many forest preserves as we could. And we went all the way around the county. We hit 35 forest preserves, but we didn't go to the state park. The reason we didn't go to the state
Okay, thank you. Your time is up.
park, get back from Stearns.
Thank you.
So,
Time's up.
thank you very much.
Angelika Stochnik?
Pete's here. No, Pete just came in too.
Understand I can have 3 more minutes?
Is this the person you asked for?
That's not who I called.
Is that person here?
She's giving up her time.
Giving up her time? Okay. Okay, you got 3 minutes.
Put the compromise.
Clock is running.
You're not starting the clock yet, are you?
I know, I have it on my screen, I'm trying to get it.
It's not my time. Please don't start the clock. I'll try to be as fast as I can. Last Sunday, we got together at Marlene's as a small neighborhood group, and then from that point, we went out and canvassed the neighborhood and got the signatures and the letters of opposition that you have in front of you tonight. As a former land planner, I've put together a proposed compromise plan. We live this is Groton Lane, basically going north-south here. Between this business park, again, a much smaller scale business park, there is a 100-foot wide, 30-foot high landscape berm that separates our homes from this business park. That is a logical and appropriate land use transition between our single-family homes and this lower scale business park. We feel that that type of transition should be kept with the existing zoning of this parcel. What I am showing you here is just a rough concept plan of an active adult community, similar to Bowes Creek and Elgin, which Toll Brothers built We designed that subdivision for them in conjunction with Jacobs Golf on the golf course. That community is almost built out. They have another community in South Barrington is almost built out. Pulte Homes is now Del Webb. They're built out of Edgebrook. They're built out of Mundelein. These builders are looking for active adult land to build on. I've talked to one of these builders. I can't mention his name, but they said they would definitely be interested in this type of development. What this is, a boulevard entry with a gatehouse that comes in servicing ranch homes similar to ours. The majority of the homes in this subdivision are ranch homes. We are probably 75% or 60% senior citizens that live in this development. This would be a natural marketing, and there's a strong market for this type of housing. There would be a small clubhouse with a meeting room, restroom and storage, small kitchen. This also would provide for a 100-foot wide, 30-foot high landscape berm that would separate this development from the Lot 1 of Martell's proposed I-2 industrial. That's at the intersection of Munger and Stearns. It relates to the main business park to the west, and it relates to the smaller scale business park to the north at this intersection, not up against our plan, up against our existing subdivision. This is the front door of our subdivision. We go in and out each day. Again, issues have already been, the impact that this will have on our community are definitely negative. So, and again, what we've done in this plan is show the detention where the detention wants to be. I've worked with V3 in the past. You guys are familiar with our old company. We no longer exist, but we've done a lot of work with V3, and the engineering the detention needs to be out along Stearns, where the natural outfall is to the south. This would create an additional buffer for this gated community. It would also create a buffer and only a right in, right out for the trucks off of into this business park use, their warehouse. Again, I'm showing something similar to scale and what they've shown on their proposed plan. This is basically what they have on Lot 1.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Annalise Molson?
My name is Annalise Molson. I live at 1205 Linfield Lane. First of all, I want to thank you for letting us enjoy your land and all the wildlife for all the years that we were able to. I'm not against progress, and I'm certainly not against lowering our taxes, but I do have some concerns. The one is about the hours of the operations in and out and the noise trucks make. Also, I'm sorry. It is very difficult at times to get out of our subdivision. We have two entrances on exits and entrances onto Stearns Road. And there are many times, if I have to leave during what's considered rush hour, I have to plan at least 10 minutes extra just so I can get out. If you do go ahead with this plan, I would like you to consider setting the speed limit down to 35 from Munger Road towards 59. And at that point, also put up a sign with constant flashing that says speed limit 35, because nobody goes 35 from Munger to 59. And unless they see a police car. And I'm also concerned about devaluing our homes. Like we had said before, we're mostly senior citizens, and we have put our life works in it, and we pay high taxes in Bartlett. And no matter what you decide, I just want to make sure that I do not lose the value of my house, but still continue to pay the high taxes for living in Bartlett.
Thank you.
Lauren Henny? Lauren here? Okay. Mike Tesner?
My name is Michael Tessner. My address is 860 Groton Lane. I just have a couple of comments and maybe a question. I've gone to Green Meadows Park many, many times with my young grandchildren. And they've enjoyed the park immensely, but sometimes they want to get over closer to Stearns where there is a sidewalk, and I say, oh, no, you don't do that, because those gravel trucks and those 50-foot boxes with the trailers in front of them that are going down there, again, probably at 50 rather than 30, that's too dangerous because you're only 2 feet away from the roadway. So that's a very much of a safety concern for that park. So the only way to access it is really through the subdivision, because you don't want your kids walking along Stearns Road, period. The other thing is, if you look from Linfield toward Munger, west toward Munger, you'll notice that the grade is downhill from Munger to Linfield. Are they going to grade this flat? Or what are they going to do about this pitch difference? Because all that water is going to go into that retention pond. And considering the size of the flat areas, it's got to go somewhere. And you can just tell by the erosion that's caused in the existing farmland there that it's pitched downhill toward Linfield. So I think you really have to consider, how are you going to grade that, and where is all that water really going to go? So other than that, the other concern I have is the speed limit, because it's ridiculous. Nobody pays any attention. And with gravel trucks coming out now, it's dangerous. It really is. So that's my only concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joseph Keeler? Joe? Mike Reardon?
Mike Worden, 431 South Main Street. I am also on the zoning board, and some of this, the zoning that happened, Bartlett had a moratorium years ago. Jerry Callis was on the village board when a lot of building was going on, and we did the comprehensive zoning plan. At the time, the Forest Preserve did not own the property across the street. If you look at plans, there is zoning because there were plans for the property south of Stearns Road. Once the Forest Preserve got that land, I don't think the OR or the SR5 made any sense at all, because it is tantamount to strip zoning. That whole land should have been the same thing as it is to the north. And the problem with SR5, you could have 8 units per building. You could end up with 64 units on that SR5 property right now, which would be pretty congested, and you would almost have to have a traffic light at Linfield to get out. And I don't think residential has any business whatsoever at the corner of Linfield and Stearns Road. I think that's a mistake. I think you know, what I've seen, I think it's remarkable that they have not requested any incentives from the village. They have met or exceeded the zoning requirements. They're not asking for a lot. I don't know what size building could actually be built there at the OR if we left it as is. But that could be a big monstrosity. And I realize that this is going to be controversial, but you know, we need to maintain some consistency and not have what we have now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine Holmes? Okay.
Well, I disagree with Mike in terms of the residential, especially if it's, again, as the market dictates today, the market out there for residential, especially in this area. And I think Bartlett has been looking actively for this type of senior living, active adult community. Very successful. We have friends that live both in the Regency at South Barrington, the Woods at South Barrington. We have friends that live in Edgewater. A number of the residents in this room are senior citizens, as you can see, like my wife and I, and would be certainly open for having this type of development with the proper buffering, land use transition with the landscaping and berming such as we have currently, not what was being shown by the builder. Again, this is not, what we're asking for is not apartments, it's not townhomes, something that has more of a similar use to what's currently with our single-family subdivision, so that, again, it gives us an opportunity to stay in Bartlett and not move to Elgin or to South Barrington for this type of development. And I feel certainly there's a strong market for the industrial. That's pretty obvious of what's happening at Brewster Creek. And again, we're firmly behind the Brewster Creek Business Park. But again, that business park identity starts at Stearns and Munger Road, not at Linfield and Stearns. If you approve this development, you're certainly not fulfilling your role of protecting the health, safety, and welfare of your citizens, and especially the citizens of the Weathersfield subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick Herring?
Good evening. My name is Rick Herring. I live at 1237 Linfield Lane. So I am the house that you've seen in most of these pictures, the one directly north of the park. My big concern comes from the hours that they can run in an operation like this, especially if it's a distribution center, trucks running at all hours of the day, evening. Some people have said that, yes, it is a football field and a half away, the parking lot, but I can hear traffic from Stearns, I can hear it from Munger currently. We could be having trucks coming, going all hours of the night, depending on what goes actually into those buildings, whether there's light fabrication or anything like that. That's another noise complaint that could impact the residents living in Weathersfield. The other question I had that somebody kind of touched on with what's going to stop trucks from coming in and out. I know that there was talk about the trucks coming, not being able to make left-hand turns onto Munger from the proposal. What's to prevent those trucks from making those turns, right? And then what's to prevent trucks from sitting in those lots and running all night long? So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
George Koziel.
Good evening, Commission and staff. My name is George Koziel. I reside at 654 Hazelnut Court. Like Mike, I'm also on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I want to open by saying I think that Brewster Creek is a clean, neat, well-developed, maintained, and consistent property throughout. Over the years, properties have changed for zoning requirements. Parcels have been rezoned based upon need and changes. I think that this zoning request is reasonable. It squares off the property of Brewster Creek, and it becomes a logical edge and end of Brewster Creek. Therefore, I think that the zoning request to make it all one makes sense. I think it's a great idea that Lot 3 was not being used to develop into some sort of a building, a structure. It was a wise move on everyone's part that spoke here tonight when they said that they're concerned about the east edge of the property, and the pond is a natural area for the retention. It prevents the industry from approaching Linfield Lane, and it's just a good use of one side of the property. I think the pond with the berm and the trees is a good a site obstruction. It makes it much more appealing from the properties on the east side of Linfield Lane. If residential was to be built, like Mike said, there's no telling what would be built and how many people would be driving out onto Linfield Lane. When people talk about, well, we would like to have tomorrow something that looks like XYZ, that's not happening today. That property has been vacant and of no interest to many people, or no people, for a long time. So I don't think that it's appropriate to hold up development of this property because of what you'd like to have. Again, I think Brewster Creek is a good property, and it should be squared off on this corner. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's it.
That's it. Anyone else have a question, comment? Did you already fill out one of those forms?
Thomas Block, 868 Middleton Lane. I just had a question about the retention pond. Is that something that's going to be filled at all times, or just when wastewater, or not wastewater, but drainage water needs to be brought there?
Okay.
So the pond will have, it'll be flat on the bottom. Where'd you go? Okay. The pond will be flat on the bottom. It'll be planted native with native plants. So there'll be grasses that are between, 3, 5 feet tall, something like that. And also native plants will also be on the side slopes. So the pond bottom will not hold water, so it will not be 10 feet deep. It's a stormwater management facility is what we call it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions out there from the audience? Comments? Public portion is closed. Anyone on the commission have any questions? Comments?
I think we should consider like a variance for the berm on Linfield to help with sound and the appearance. So maybe they can get an easement and build the berm maybe twice as high as it's planned right now.
Roberta, is that something we'd have to put in the motion?
I'm not sure that's possible. Could you please address that, Brian?
So we originally had the berm actually shifted over a little bit, a little taller. And through the review process with the village engineer, we had to shift that over. And what it is they follow the IDOT standard for detention facilities adjacent to public roadways. So that 25-foot offset is from the right-of-way to the bottom of the berm, which is the start of the detention facility. So we would need some relief from the village engineer in order to push that berm closer to the right-of-way. He is referencing an IDOT standard. Since it's not an IDOT roadway, it doesn't necessarily need to be followed, but he would need to grant some relief on that.
We would have to request a modification from the subdivision ordinance. And that's something that you could put in your motion for him to take a look at, if you so choose.
I don't think it hurts to put it in the motion, and then obviously, if staff doesn't think it's something that can be done or is not feasible, then I think that's their decision. I mean, they would be the experts on that, but I don't think it hurts to put it in the motion.
And part of that, too, is one of your conditions is part of the engineering approval. So it could be wrapped into that, too.
I'd say add it,
Okay.
just as a safety.
Anyone else? Jerry? No. The petitioner have anything else you'd like to add?
Just to that point, I suppose for purposes of the record or the procedure, if that's that's something that we've said tonight that we'd be willing to do, I'd like to not have to file a new application for another variance if possible. So perhaps Roberta could educate me on that. But if it is appropriate, we would at least make an oral request for that variance, and with your recommendation, let that carry on to the village board, and if it's decided that it's the right thing to do, then that's what we'll do, and if it's not the right thing to do, we won't, but at least we won't have to come back for new public hearings, et cetera, on that specific point.
So what I'm hearing from the petitioner is that they would rather not request a variation because it would require them going back to the zoning board and delaying their request. So I believe it's going to be a modification and not a variation from the subdivision ordinance, but I would need to get clarification from our village engineer. And again, part of that approval, if you make that recommendation for him to take another look at the requirements for the berming and in relation to the detention, that we could wrap that into his engineering approval.
So what would you still need us to add something to the motion?
I would mention it, yes, as in your motion, that you would like the village engineer to continue to review the berm height and location, and is it possible for it to be increased with, as a modification to the plans and the subdivision ordinance? How about that?
That sounds good.
You're looking for it?
That's what I think so.
Well, then you can add that on.
Because we would be willing to consider working with the engineer if we had to move something a few feet to get the height, not impinge on that 25 feet as much. I think we would certainly consider that. So I think getting to the motion, we'll cooperate with the engineer to be able to build that berm as high as possible without impinging too much on that 25 feet.
I concur.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, then we're going to be looking for a motion for a preliminary final plat of re-subdivision, rezoning from the OR office in SR5 zoning districts to I2 EDA, general industry economic development area zoning district, site plan review of lots 1 and 2, special use permits to fill in the wetlands.
And Roberta's motion to have the engineer review the berm height and possible modification to make the berm higher if need be, or if it's possible.
Subject to the following conditions and the following and findings of fact. Anything else?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Who's second?
I did.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Secretary call the roll.
John Miasso?
Yes.
Austin Hopkins?
No.
Jack Allen?
Yes.
Jerry Callis?
Yes.
Dan Gunstein? Jim Lemberg?
Yes. Okay. Motion carried. Good luck.
You're gonna take these.
Wait a few minutes for that room to clear.
Sir.
Oh, that was last month.
Gotta have the green light on.
Variation, yes.
No, you did. People heard you, but that's okay. That's why I didn't want to tell you to go turn it on.
Yeah, yours is on.
Okay. Can we take it out to the hallway, please?
At 7 o'clock here.
7 o'clock here, yes. It's just the subdivision.
It's not this coming.
It's, yeah, the 19th. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm a week off.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you take it out to the hallway? We have to finish our meeting here.
At 7 o'clock right here.
7 p.m.
I just found the interest and I stayed for the rest of it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay.
I think that
We're still in a meeting. Sorry. Hi, thank you. Sorry.
Any other case?
We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a public meeting. We're public officials. They can take pictures.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
2 grandkids.
2 grandkids?
Nothing we can do. Nothing we can do about that.
Went underneath the picture. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please take it to the hallway?
It's a little unfortunate.
John Miasso.
I'm over here. Commissioner Miasso, back to the dais.
John.
Parcel, though.
Wrap you guys around here.
I had plenty to
Around you.
but they
Everybody else.
Old business, new.
that was it, you know, as they were talking, and especially with
Next item on the agenda is old business, new business.
sister,
Can't hear, I don't think,
how long they've had
Can't
it.
hear you.
But I was looking.
can't hear you.
Guys, can you guys take all conversations outside? We just have to finish our meeting. Thank you.
Get out of here.
We might have a petition next month, I'm not sure. We've got a couple pending. We'll see if they make it on.
For next month, okay.
Yes. And it'll be a little bit well, no, maybe not. No. It could be another large
Issue.
issue.
That's all right. We get paid by the hour, right?
What about next month, a hearing or no, or?
Okay. Anyone on the commission have any questions or comments? Bring up business? No?
Thank you for coming. We needed each one of you for the quorum tonight, because if one of you was missing, it would have been a problem. So thank you.
I just want to say real quickly, I'm having a reception for our past chairman, Ray Daney, at my house next week. I'll give you my address and everything.
Okay.
Gumbo, hurricanes, cornbread, and some other good stuff.
I'm just gonna take it.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
You're throwing that
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.